Liz White enjoyed her 20s, but she wanted kids. It was 1980. She was 28 years old. She had a job, a house, a husband, but she looked around to her peers and she felt behind. Plus, one of her cousins just kept having babies.
I wanted her body. I wanted her, she could say, oh, I want to have my baby in April, or I want to have my baby in May. She could just, she was just that fertile. Her husband was too. And so they could plan that. And I quietly wished it was like that for me.
Liz and her husband tried to get pregnant for a year on their own with no luck. They decided to see a specialist and her husband got his sperm checked. But because of a surgery he had when he was a child, he didn't have any. So Liz and her husband turned to the fertility industry for help. Liz experienced a different fertility industry than the one that exists today. These days, if you need sperm, you can pick your donor out of an online catalog. Look at his bearded face, his curly hair, his family medical history. You can even see if he likes coffee. Once you pick out your donor, the sperm gets shipped to your doctor, and from there, they can put it directly into a woman's uterus.
Or, if you're doing in vitro fertilization, they combine egg and sperm outside of the body in a lab. And if it works the way it's supposed to, the egg develops into an embryo, it's put into a woman's uterus, where it can grow to become a baby.
But in vitro wasn't available in 1980, and patients didn't get to choose their sperm.
Doctor chose that, looking at the health of that donor, blood type of that donor, so it matched me, so we wouldn't have a conflict. And it was brown hair, brown eyes, and about 6 foot tall.
Basically a guy who looked like Liz's husband. That was all the information she got.
Each month, Liz got artificial insemination. A doctor would take frozen sperm, thaw it out, and inject it into her uterus. But after a year and a half of treatment, Liz still wasn't pregnant. So her doctor referred her to another fertility specialist, Donald Klein.
He was considered the best of the best.
Just give us your first and last name and spell your last name for us.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, just so we have it on tape.
Okay, Donald Klein, and it's C-L-A-N-E.
We dusted off some old footage here from 2004, but when Liz saw Klein 37 years ago, he looked more like this. But this is the same office Liz went to, and the reason Klein was considered the best had to do with this one little room at his office.
I remember the first visit. You come in the door, the waiting room is small, somewhat dark, and then there's an immediate hall to the left. And as you come into that hall, on the left side is a half bath, which we call the magazine room.
Klein didn't use a sperm bank. Frozen sperm had a lower success rate, so Liz would get sperm from a live donor. St. Vincent Hospital was across the street from Klein's office, so he would find a medical resident who looked like Liz's husband. And when she came in for her appointments, that resident would go into that magazine room and provide a sample.
In that first meeting, Liz was impressed with Klein's results. She looked over at a corkboard that was next to her, and it was covered in baby photos.
I remember the wall of pictures of the babies that he produced.
Did that make you think, like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing?
Yeah, and I was cautiously hopeful. So knowing that I've had 2.5 years of trying, this is just, that's where I was. I had hope.
So she started seeing Klein 3 times a month when she was ovulating. The technology wasn't the only thing that was different about the fertility treatment in the 70s and 80s. The stigma was much different back then. It was a lot stronger. People just didn't talk about it.
So Liz invented excuses to leave work for her appointments, and she kept her emotions to herself. For a year and a half with that first doctor, Liz went in each month alone and hoped it would be the month, and then it wasn't.
And she didn't talk to anyone about what she was going through. Not her family, not her friends, not even her husband.
I didn't want him to feel any worse than he felt. So the disappointment I felt, I hid from him. He knew I was going, but it wasn't like a conversation where, oh, I'm sorry, you had your period again. I did it alone.
All right, so there's another aspect of this that we need to address. Who here has never been to an OBGYN?
Okay, so this message is for you. So maybe if you've never really thought about what happens when a woman goes to her OBGYN or to her fertility doctor, and it's not fun. You have to undress from the waist down. You have to put your feet up in stirrups. They're going to be touching you and checking for all sorts of things. And a lot of the time, it's a man, which is not my personal preference. Women really need their doctors to be professional, and they need to communicate, especially when you're in that vulnerable position. And looking back, Liz says Klein didn't really walk her through what she was going through or what was going on during her appointments.
I remember him being friendly at the first visit. After that, it was just a procedural kind of thing.
Transactional almost.
Yes. I don't remember a conversation with Klein being warm or engaging or comforting.
3 times a month at each appointment, Liz felt alone and physically exposed. But she trusted him. And even with the vulnerability and the sadness, it was worth it in the end. After 5 months of treatment from Klein, 15 visits, Liz got pregnant.
Whether he has good bedside manners, I'm not coming for the bedside manner necessarily. I'm coming for that area of expertise. And I expected expertise. I expected him to do what he was good at. I expected the truth from him, and never thought he was lying to me.
Matt White is the son that was conceived in that office 37 years ago, and I first met him at a parking lot north of Indianapolis. Matt knew the basics of his parents' fertility issues. His parents told him when he asked about their blood types. It was part of an assignment in his high school biology class, and he doesn't remember it being a big deal.
I just kept treating him and interacting with him just as if, he was my biological father. It really didn't change anything.
Matt went off to college, studied birds in grad school, got married, and had kids of his own. Then one day in 2016, he was at work sitting at his desk on his phone, and he came across a news article. A local fertility doctor had just been charged with a crime.
I just quickly opened the article, and I just started reading, and I was just like, I'm going to be a part of this.
Matt's remembering this as we sit in his Honda, and right in front of us is an office building. Matt's eyes just lock on this building.
I think if I went in, I'd kind of probably get goosebumps.
When Matt was a teenager, his mom would point to this building as they drove by because this is where Matt was conceived.
I don't know if it would be the same layout today or if it's changed over the years with different tenants, but I'd start feeling really weird about, this is where he was doing this in this room, and then he was going over there where his patients were. And
The he in that sentence is his mom's doctor, Donald Klein. It's the same doctor in that news article he read on his phone. Even before he could prove it, Matt knew what happened. He knew that Klein lied to his mother. When she came in, what did she think was going to happen? Walk me through what she thought the procedure was.
For what she was doing, the idea would be to go in and, have a, brief conversation with the doctor, with Klein, and he was going to instruct her to change into a robe, get on the chair, and he'll go and get the sample and be right back, and they'll do the insemination.
But that didn't happen.
No.
What did he do instead?
He masturbated and collected his own sample and walked back in that room and put it in my mother. And that's how I was conceived.
Prosecutors say Dr. Donald Klein used his own sperm on women trying to have babies without their knowledge.
They are donor children searching for answers.
Parents use the same doctor.
But do they have the right to know anything about the man who helped conceive them?
Sick is a show about what goes wrong in the places meant to keep us healthy. And this season, we have a lot of questions to answer.
How did Klein get caught? How do you hold him accountable?
Could this happen again? What else is going on in the fertility industry that we should know about?
And what is it like to find out in your 30s that you have 50 siblings? Oh yeah, there are more than 50 siblings and counting.
That's this season on Sick.